Spartans! Ready your breakfast and eat hearty. But tonight, we dine
nasty.
Welcome in to the 9th episode of the Tonight We Dyn Nasty podcast. I'm Gerard, as always, joined by Brent.
How's it going, guys?
And breaking down week 3, going to preview week 4. So, I guess prior to moving into that, we did have a trade this week. Mike got hit with some injury news, and Cam Newton's Liz Frank injury, 4 to 8 weeks, I believe. So Mike went out and got a quarterback. He got Carson Wentz for Devin Singletary. How do you feel about that, Brent?
Well, I mean, I think that Carson Wentz came into the year, I would say, a top 3-4 dynasty quarterback. Obviously, he hasn't had the greatest start to the year, but I still think he's a tremendous value. We don't know what to make of Devin Singletary in Buffalo. Obviously, he has had a hot start. They traded LaShawn McCoy away. I kind of like the trade for both teams. I think, obviously, class of 2017 has Patrick Mahomes, who's tearing up the league right now. So in a one-quarterback league, obviously you don't need that bench quarterback as much as maybe like a Superflex or a 2-quarterback league. But I think at the first of the year, if you were saying, like, I'm going to trade Carson Wentz for Devin Singletary, who was a 3rd-round rookie draft pick, I think you're saying that that's not as great value. But now seeing what Devin Singletary is, I think he could probably build in that and develop in that Buffalo Bills backfield. And obviously he's probably going to be the starter there with Frank Gore and TJ Yeldon kind of handling the receiving back role. So I like it for both teams. Mike obviously needed a quarterback, or Hackenberger and Fries needed a quarterback since Cam Newton's went down. So he's going to get some production with Carson Wentz, or should get some production with Carson Wentz.
Yeah. I mean, I think obviously the trade makes sense for both teams. But when you think about long-term value, it's almost like Mike is kind of winning in both now value and long-term value. You know, Devin Singletary isn't a super big guy. He isn't a super big guy. He's someone who probably is going to need to be in a running back by committee, and he's shown well, but in very limited action so far, on top of the fact that he's hurt right now. But I think, like we kind of previewed earlier and then didn't release that episode, we talked about class of 2017 just not necessarily having the depth that he needed to have to compete, or maybe compete if he ran into some injuries, and he's run into some injury trouble, and he's run into some trouble with Antonio Brown. So he's trying to kind of retool that depth, as some guys like, Preston Williams he's kind of stepping up, and he's doing pretty well, but hasn't necessarily cracked the lineup. But like Chris Godwin's been inconsistent. Calvin Ridley had a couple good weeks, let him down last week. Devontae Adams hasn't been the Devontae Adams, so he's just looking for skill players everywhere.
Yeah, and Sony Michel, you and I were talking about this off air, but Sony Michel has kind of been a disappointment, and we're not sure what's going to happen in that New England backfield now with James Devlin. I think that's his name, James, going down. So Sony Michel might kind of see a more limited role. So it definitely looks like Mouse Team on paper was a little better than I think what the team is at least producing early on in the season.
Yeah,
so.
And I mean, losing Antonio Brown is a huge hit. I mean, that's a guy who you think is going to be kind of a 1-2 punch, so he should have Brown and Devontae Adams, and we're watching the game right now on Thursday night, and Devontae Adams just caught a big pass, but Brown and Devontae Adams as his 2 wide receiver ones, and then Chris Godwin, Calvin Ridley with the ability to kind of flirt with that low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2 value. And you put those 4 guys in your starting lineup, and you pair them with a guy like Dalvin Cook, who's the best running back in football right now, fantasy points wise, who Devontae Freeman, who should bounce back, Sony Michel, who should bounce back and have a good year. You more optimism for his team than is reality, I think, at this point. So, I guess, the trade kind of makes sense for both teams. I think, like you said, Wentz kind of had a little bit more value now, and just the length of quarterbacks' kind of careers. I feel like Mike could get another 10 years out of Carson Wentz, and this is kind of almost like a panic move for Malf after losing Brown and Mahomes playing so well,
but still trying to shore up the depth, just like you talked about. I think again, it's adding depth to the positions that we're going to play every week. Like right now, he's okay with playing Patrick Mahomes week after week, so he doesn't really need Carson Wentz. So if he can get Singletary in his starting lineup in a flex spot, obviously that's going to create a little bit more maybe points than what another player right now, Devontae Freeman, Sony Michel, is going to give him. At least week 4 in the NFL season.
Yeah. So we move on to week 3. Couple close games, couple not so close games, couple really impressive weeks. Ryan had a really impressive week, scoring the most points, coming out with 182. He of course beat me.
And with Ryan, we got to give a shout out to Pancho Power. He changed his name. I think the Buffalo Bills fan was Pancho Villa, I believe is who it was, who passed away tragically. Obviously, I talked with Ryan a little bit about this, but a Buffalo Bills diehard fan, he was trying to pay his respects, and he really did have the Pancho Power beating your team. What was it, 182 to 113? So pretty handily there. Yeah. So he definitely had Pancho Power.
Mm-hmm. And then the next highest score of the week comes in with Fairbanks Flamingos, who hands Jets Around the Clock his first loss of the year. Fairbanks Flamingos bowl moves to 2-1. Jets Around the Clock bumps down to 2-1. But still, a decent score there for Jets Around the Clock. We kind of hated on him on the, in the offseason and some of the moves that he's made, and I didn't really have big expectations. But 132 was a top end score this week, and would have gotten him a win against the West Coasters again, against Backyard Boys, against Malf, who, or we call him class of 2017. His name is now Don't Forget the Money. So
what kind of name is that?
So, even though he does get the loss, he still puts up a pretty impressive number. NJ Giants comes in, puts up an impressive 162 for the third highest score of the week. And then just kind of some other scores. West Coasters moves to 2-1. He beats Dominators by about 30, and Backyard Boy. Actually, no, we didn't want to talk about that game yet. And then Backyard Boys, in a lower scoring game, a little defensive struggle, as they call it, comes away with a 2-point victory over Don't Forget the Money, who forgot that his team needed to start a relevant tight end, and Trey Burton lets him down with 4 points on Monday Night Football when the Bears were just going off.
And that's something we've continued to talk about, is on paper at least, class of 2017, Don't Forget the Money, whatever his team name is now. We've continued to talk about how on paper he really looks good. Wide receivers, running back depth, his quarterback is unbelievable, but that tight end position has always kind of been kind of a Achilles heel for him, because obviously he traded. I think he traded you earlier, Mark Andrews. Yeah. So he dealt a pretty high valued pick now, or in Mark Andrews, and has Trey Burton, who just still can't put it together in that. And I know some of it's injury, some of it's just maybe not being the number 1 or 2, 3 target in the Bears offense. It just doesn't seem like he's putting it together. So again, that kind of comes back to bite him. That was the game that you and I previewed in depth last week, and kind of our game of the week. Looking at, and we thought it was going to be more high scoring than that. And I obviously took class of 2017 at the time, and then you took Backyard Boys. So you obviously won that. And then just off air,
Brent said that he was thinking that he was going to make a bet with me, and now I really wish he did make a bet with me, because yeah, I would have been walking away with a lunch or something like that. But not, that's not the case right now. But yeah, class of 2017 kind of takes a hit. Marquise Brown comes back down to earth with only 5 points. And then Saquon Barkley out for 4 to 6 weeks, or 4 to 8 weeks. Austin Eckler now with the news that Melvin Gordon's coming back. It kind of goes into what we talked about last year with this team, is he's got a really strong starting lineup. but his bench can't necessarily fill out that depth. I think it's kind of the same situation with both of these teams. You look at his bench, Rex Burkhead scored the most, Paul Richardson scored the most points on his bench, but Paul Richardson's not going to put up 18 every week. And Rex Burkhead put up 15, but other than that, he's got 2, he's got 6, he's got 3, he's got 2.5, 4. It's just not a team that when he gets hit with an injury like Saquon Barkley, that he can just reach down into the bench and pull somebody up who's going to keep producing.
Yeah. And did he at least bring DJ Chark off the practice squad? I feel like that was a move that we kind of shared that he might need to do.
I feel like he did, and then he might have put him back on the squad.
Put him back on the practice squad. which you talk about depth and a position of need for Backyard Boys, who's putting Corey Davis out there week after week.
Yeah, and leaving Gerald Everett and Ted Ginn on his bench. But I think Will has been unanimous for holding on to players who are past their prime, not going to make a dent in the league yet, still somehow on his bench, like the late, great Jeremy Hill, or the Mr. Irrelevant of our rookie draft in Amir Abdullah. But I think it'll be really interesting with Corey Davis's struggles. Cortland Sutton he's getting there. But I think it'll be really interesting to see what Austin Eckler's use is moving forward with Melvin Gordon back, and how he rebounds and fills that Saquon Barkley role. Because I don't think that Marquise Brown is going to be a 20-plus guy like he was the first 2 weeks every week. I think he's more of a hit-or-miss kind of guy. So it should definitely be interesting.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see kind of how that goes throughout the year for both these teams. And kind of, I think, class of 2017, or Don't Forget the Money, is trying to right the ship now. Backyard Boys is setting pretty with 3 wins now. So we'll kind of, 2 teams going in totally different directions, but see if Don't Forget the Money can kind of right the ship.
Yeah. And then, I mean, I don't know what you're doing, Brent, but I don't know how you continue to get so lucky week after week, winning by less than a point, less than 2 points, and you pull off another one this week. I guess what would you call it? A nail biter down to the wire.
Definitely a nail biter
on Monday night, as Case Keenum and Allen Robinson came up just over a point short of pulling off the comeback.
And I told you the day after, but that Monday night, like I feel like this is week 2 of I played Fairbanks Flamingos last week, and I feel like it came down to that Monday night. I can't remember exactly what happened with that game, but this one I was literally
Nick Chubb.
He had Nick Chubb that week. This week, same, very similar situation. Actually, Case Keenum was driving. It was the game was out of hand. I wish they would have just ended the game, but of course, talk about a real nail biter. Case Keenum was driving. They needed to convert a 4th and 1. I think Hackenberger and Fries was down maybe like 2 points at that time, and they still had about 30 yards to go. If they converted that 4th and 1, which he fumbled on and lost points, so thankfully, however it figured out, like I won by whatever, a point or something, maybe even less than a point. But if he would have converted that, I think Case Keenum would have picked up enough yardage to win Mike the Week. So another one that just I feel like I keep putting up these good weeks, but the team that I'm playing obviously puts up just about the same score, and it's really getting to be something, to kind of stay up on Monday nights and watching and making sure that my fantasy football team is winning that week.
We all feel so bad for you, Brent, and your 3-0 start. But if you continue to pray to the fantasy gods like you do, maybe you can bring some luck into our other 2 teams that we're sharing that we're not
doing as well.
Yeah, we're not finding the same amount of luck as you're finding here.
But again, another strong performance for Hackenberger and Fries. Like it's, I feel like he's put up 3 pretty strong weeks, with this one being, I don't know what he scored in the other weeks, but I think this one is probably his highest scoring week so far. But had a really good performance. Obviously, he's he's battling the injury bug. I mean, AJ Green's going to come back sometime this year. Obviously, Todd Gurley has not been playing like Todd Gurley of old. We'll see if that continues, if he doesn't get as many reps, whatever. But obviously, throughout the season, I think, and we'll talk about this a little later, but I think Hackenberger and Fries can kind of make a little bit of a run.
Yeah. Well, why talk about it later when we could talk about it right now, Brent, since we've went over all the games from last week. We've got 4 teams who aren't in the playoffs right now, being Nick at the very bottom, Dominators in 11th, both 0-3, Hackenberger and Fries in 10th, who's also 0-3, and I'm in 9th at 1-2. And then kind of going down to up, I guess, we have Don't Forget the Money, who's in 8th. West Coasters, who's in 7th. Jets are on the clock in 6th. Poncho Power in 5th. And then NJ Giants in 4th. Fairbanks Flamingos in 3rd. Backyard Boys in 2nd. And then you at the top in 1st. And only 2...
Feels good to be in the lead right now after 3 weeks of football.
Mm-hmm. So, with that being said, who's your team that you're projecting that it's out of the playoffs that's going to take a playoff spot, and who's the team that is in the playoffs that's not going to make the playoffs this year?
Well, I'll jump right in with kind of what I was talking about. I feel like Hackenberger and Fries is that team that is he's 0-3 right now. I don't believe that he's going to be 0-3, or I don't think he's going to go 0-4. I think he's going to catch some wins. I think he's going to catch those breaks that he didn't catch this week against me. Obviously, like I said, AJ Green's going to return. I think he's going to get some more production from Todd Gurley. Obviously, he just made that trade for Carson Wentz, who I think is a better, much better upgrade to his quarterback than Case Keenum is on a weekly basis.
Yeah, well, he had Cam Newton before.
Obviously, he had Cam Newton, who was a well, I mean, I think a boom or bust quarterback at times. I think he put up some good weeks in last year, and kind of Hackenberger and Fries definitely enjoyed some of those, the kind of the fruits of Cam Newton's work last year, but obviously he didn't look great the first 2 weeks of this year, and now we don't know what's going to happen with Kyle Allen. So again, that Carson Wentz trade I think is going to do good things for Hackenberger and Fry's team. I think he can find a way, and again on paper he looks really strong. I don't know. I haven't really looked through the matchups that he has, but I think he's a team that can really turn it around and get himself into the playoff push kind of later on in the year. Mm-hmm. So what about you for the kind of a team that's outside looking in right now?
So this is probably not going to be the popular pick, but I'm going to make a bold prediction here. And I'm going to say that the Dominators is going to make a run, and they are going to fill a playoff spot. I kind of like what he's got going on in his receiver area. Marquez Valdez-Scantling has shown flashes this year. I think he continued to grow into the number 2 in Green Bay, and having a number 2 in Green Bay is pretty good. Tyler Boyd has looked really good. Tyrell Williams has stepped into the 1 in Oakland. D.D. Westbrook is off to a slow start, but I think that he can definitely rebound and start to gain some traction with Gardner Minshew. He's got Deshaun Jackson on his bench, who's obviously out right now, but has the ability to explode. And then just all over the place. You know, he's got Matt Breida, who I think is going to be useful, because once Tevin Coleman comes back, I think then Jeff Wilson's going to get less touches, Raheem Mostert's going to get less touches, and Breida's actually going to be more useful.
And what we know about Matt Breida is that no matter what, if he has injuries or whatever, he's playing through them. So I definitely think Matt Breida is a great bench player if you're looking for kind of that running back depth, especially later on in the year when running backs kind of have injuries and that sort of thing. Yeah,
and then you're looking at James White. You just mentioned earlier that with James Devlin being on IR, there might be a shift in the way that the Patriots run their offense. And I think that, James White could be a big beneficiary to that. Why can't I think of his name? Tariq Tariq Cohen. kept thinking
Not Tyreek Hill.
I kept thinking Tevin Coleman, and I couldn't get that name out of my head. So Tariq Cohen is someone who has less than 100 yards in 3 games so far, but Mike Davis is clearly working his way out of the rotation, which is just going to lend more ability for Tariq Cohen to start getting rushing yards, which is something that he has not been getting in the first 3 weeks. Peyton Barber has shown flashes of good, hot and cold. That's just such a weird backfield when it looks like Ronald Jones is good, he gets no work. It looks like Peyton Barber is good, he gets no work. Gus Edwards is he's starting to mix in with Mark Ingram, and I think he can kind of grow into a bigger role. And then TJ Yeldon kind of stepped into a bigger role last week when Singletary was out. So I think that he's got some players. It's about making the right decisions, and he's got Hawkinson who can continue to grow and into the tight end role. He's got Phillip Rivers who's going to, I think, improve when Melvin Gordon gets back into the lineup. So it should be a very interesting group of guys that he has moving forward. And, his division, we kind of talked about Backyard Boys. He just came off playing West Coasters. He's got the NJ Giants this week, who had a good week last week. But I think that, his schedule probably lightens up for him. Like I said, so he loses to West Coasters last week. He loses to Jets Are on the Clock the week before. And then week 1, he loses to you. So he plays 3 teams who are currently in the playoffs. He's going to get a game against Nick. He's going to get a game against me, and who knows what will happen. And then I think, maybe he catches Will on a time when, who knows if Zeke has a bye or Zeke doesn't have a good week, and T.Y. comes back down to earth a little bit, and I don't know. It kind of, it seems like there's a chance for him to make a run at the playoffs here, so that's my bold, spicy prediction.
Nice, and we'll see what happens. I'm not as high on Dominators making a playoff push, but that doesn't necessarily mean we know after 3 weeks of football that football is absolutely crazy. So really anything can happen, and I think you laid out a really good kind of way he can kind of, with the schedule and with his players and depth and everything, he could possibly make a run.
I think he's also got a lot of depth players. When you talk about week 3, you can't really tell anything. There's going to be a lot of injuries, and that's going to give him and his depth guys the opportunity to step into roles that they just don't have right now.
And I know I've talked with Dominators about trades, and he's really reluctant to part ways with his running backs right now, and he keeps saying that he needs running backs. But in all honesty, I think running back could be a real strength for him, like you're talking about. I mean, we don't need to go over them again, but a lot of satellite backs, a lot of players who are going to kind of fill roles, especially if injuries happen. Yeah, so I definitely feel like that could be turn into a strength for him, and really have that running back depth that you need to kind of make a playoff push if that's kind of the way you go.
Mm-hmm. So who's your team that's in the playoffs now that you do not think will be in the playoffs?
So I hate to keep it's kind of beating the dead horse. We talked about Jets Are on the Clock in the off season, not making the moves that we felt were necessary of a team that's kind of going in the right direction, working kind of his way into the playoffs. But in all honesty, I've been dead wrong up until this point. He's started off 2-1 and has a really strong start. You just talked about his week this week. He ran up against Fairbanks Flamingos, who just put up a better week than him. But yeah, with his roster, I feel like he has some really good-looking players. I think Josh Jacobs has come off out of the gates pretty strong. Obviously, he paid up to get Josh Jacobs. This year's his top rookie. Lamar Jackson has just been this world beater. We'll take a pause out right now to kind of update people on Gerard and I's bet on Lamar Jackson. I said that he would be a top. I think Gerard said in the summer that he would not be a top 24 quarterback in the NFL. Yeah. And I was willing to take that bet if it was a top 15, but he gave me the 24. And so I just wonder where Lamar Jackson is currently right now. Is he?
He's number 3.
He's number 3. He's quarterback 3 right now. So anyways, I don't think Lamar Jackson is going to finish the year at quarterback 3. So
we made that bet. I also want to preface saying we made that bet somewhere in the June-July range, and I have since changed my opinion on Lamar Jackson, but I did not back out on the bet. So much so that I grabbed Lamar Jackson in a redraft league that I had, because I feel so confident.
You were very thankful for me suggesting that to you, so you're welcome. Anyways,
I came to that conclusion myself.
Lamar Jackson is how good he's been. I don't think that's necessarily. I think he's going to continue playing, playing well, and I think he will finish as a quarterback 1. So I think he'll finish in that like 10 to 12 range. But obviously, he's going to take a little bit of a step back and not put up these huge boom weeks. Mm-hmm. He has players like you were mentioning, Terry McLaurin, who's just came out, and again, I saw something today. If we had to redraft. Due to the rookie redraft, a lot of people are saying that Terry McLaurin would be the first wide receiver off the board, and I can't really argue it. I mean, he's scored a touchdown in every game so far. He's putting up, I think, 18 points a game, which is in a PPR league, but so in a half point PPR, obviously it'd be adjusted. Maybe that's 16 or 15 or 16.
17.2.
Okay. So Terry McLaurin is obviously a player that. Again, I think there's going to be a little bit of that, again, I don't think it's going to be a tremendous amount of regression, but regression in the sense that he might put up 9 to 10 points a week instead of this 17 points a week. The running back depth is, obviously, he has Le'Veon Bell, who is... has been playing really well, but didn't perform as well. Obviously, they met up against the Patriots this week. But Le'Veon Bell, I think, is one of those backs that if he doesn't get his touches, and I don't know where the Jets' offense is going to go, but it doesn't look good.
It can only go up from here, though. I mean, Darnold is on track for coming back week 5, so it can only go up from what it was a couple weeks ago, or last week, where they got shut out and they scored a special teams and a defensive touchdown.
Sure. Yeah, and I agree with that, and I think the Jets' offense is going to look good, and I think they're going to use Le'Veon Bell a lot, but we'll see if Sam Darnold tries to get some wide receivers involved, that sort of thing. Well, anyways, I think the key thing is he's playing some rookies in his starting lineup. He still has Ronald Jones in his starting lineup. Obviously, that's because. I guess it was because of Lev Bell not playing this week, but we don't know what Ronald Jones is doing. You were mentioning it before. He's looked good maybe one game out of the year. He just doesn't have what it takes, I think, to be an every down running back in the NFL. And if he doesn't really have that skill set to be a receiving back. So if he can't be a 1 or 2 down back, and then he doesn't have the skill set to be a receiving back, I don't know what purpose he really serves in that Tampa Bay offense. Yeah. Obviously, Keenan Allen just played out of his mind last week, so I can't really say anything about him. He produces year after year. Mecole Hardman, obviously, kind of in that mold of Tyreek Hill. They want to use him in a lot of different gadget plays, but just like Tyreek Hill's rookie year, he's going to be used in a lot of kind of more trick plays or kind of just like run as fast as you can down the field. So that's going to create some boom bust weeks, but if he doesn't have him in his lineup, obviously he's not going to get those points. But anyways, I think with the talent that's in this league and everything, I just think Jets are on the clock is going to take a little bit of a step back and maybe be in that 9 to 10 range when the season ends. Mm-hmm. So what about for you? Who's in the playoffs, kind of in the playoff, the top 8 right now that you think is going to take a step back and kind of be in that back 4?
So I'm torn on this one. And I think I'm going to make my pick because of his record right now. I'm between Backyard Boys and Don't Forget the Money. And I'm going to pick Don't Forget the Money because he's 1-2. And he's tied with me for record-wise for already being out of the playoffs. He plays Mike this week. And he's still got to go through West Coasters. He's got to play Ryan again. And did we already play? Yeah, we already played. He's got to play Ryan again. He's got to play you. He's got to play Fairbanks Flamingos. He's got to play West Coasters. I think that the depth is going to start to hurt him. We're coming into a time where we're going to run into a couple bye weeks, and I just don't see him lining up favorably in those situations. Like right now, I mean, Devontae Adams at the end of the first quarter already has 13 points, over 100 yards, but that's just Philly's secondary today. But he's not going to do that. Mike Williams is hurt with the back injury. Chris Godwin's got a hip injury, hasn't been practicing. If Sony Michel's not as good, if Devontae Freeman's putting up the same numbers he really has two guys in Mahomes and Cook and maybe Adams in that area that's going to continue to put up big points, and then everybody else is going to be a question mark week in and week out. And his tight end position is, like you said, Trey Burton. And that's just not good enough when you see some of the depth and the talent that some of the other teams have in the league. That's not good enough to continue to pull off victories. You know, Mike's team, who he's playing this week, Mike's team is decimated by injury and suspension, and he still is able to put up what I see as a more stout lineup, even though he's projected to lose by 4 points. He's able to have Mack and Carson, Henry, Gurley, Mike Evans and Alshon Jeffrey, Allen Robinson and O.J. Howard. I kind of would rather have that than a hurt Chris Godwin, a questionable Calvin Ridley, and a Mike Williams who's got a hurt back, Sony Michel, who last week against the Jets when they were up a ridiculous amount, got 11 yards on 9 carries, and if he didn't get into the end zone, it would have been, it would have just been a waste of a day. Devontae Freeman had a good week last week, but his first 2 weeks were and he's going up against Tennessee this week. It just seems like there's a lot of question marks, and I would not want to be in that situation if I was, don't forget the money. And especially because he doesn't have any draft picks moving forward.
And that's what I was going to say. If that's truly the case and he kind of falls into that last 4, you got to start thinking about his decisions and making those moves that he did over the summer. Really trying to go get a top-level wide receiver in Antonio Brown. Obviously, that's no fault of his. I mean, he thought he was going into a really good situation even with the Oakland Raiders, and then now went to the New England Patriots, and now he's out of the league, may never play football again. We don't know. He enrolled in college courses, I think, at Central Michigan. So we're really not sure what's going on with that. But you have to start questioning some of those decision-making kinds of things. He gave up some draft picks to me that we've detailed on this podcast a couple times. So really, if that is the thing and the route that he wanted to go is in, okay, win now, I want to rebuild, and or that kind of rebuild now and win now sort of mentality that I know he has, you really have to start kind of questioning kind of where do you go from here.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the biggest thing is it's not his fault with the Antonio Brown thing. And I think that trade is definitely beneficial for him. I think Cohen and Westbrook and a first for a second and Antonio Brown is an extremely fair trade, and I think it worked well for both sides. Your trade is the one that baffles me. 3 first-round picks and Sammy Watkins for Dallas Goedert and Darius Geis. And a second or 2? Did you give him 2 seconds or just 1?
I gave him 1 second.
So that just doesn't add up to me. If he had Sammy Watkins on his team right now, a depth that he needs, that's kind of like a throw-in in your trade. 3 firsts for a guy who's never taken a snap in the NFL, I just don't get it. You had plenty of other talented running backs on your team that weren't injury risks that he could have went after, and instead he went after the guy that you were super high on, that he's super high on, and threw away his first round capital for the next 2 years. And then he comes into this year, doesn't perform the way he wants to, or he's hoping to, and now he's getting bit with the injury bug. Like I said again, Sammy Watkins is performing, Dallas Goedert's not performing, and Geis on IR. It's just not the season that he had envisioned.
And I think that's right. It's not the season that he had envisioned, but if you keep looking at it and you kind of move forward, even without Antonio Brown, I think his team is set up again on paper with Darius Geis coming back in 2020, Dallas Goedert probably taking a step forward in that offense and maybe being the focal point as the tight end in that offense, that could give him tight end depth, that could give him running back depth in 2020. Again, we're not always playing for the future, and that's why I'm saying that we got to question the decisions now, because he made these decisions to win this year. Not for, I mean, obviously you play for the future in Dynasty, but I think he was intending to be very competitive and maybe get into that top 4 this year.
Yeah, I think, everyone's trying to chase Jared, everyone's trying to chase you, everyone's trying to chase Will. And I think he was doing a lot of chasing, and he took a lot of risks, and just none of the risks that he took at this point have paid off. So moving past that into previewing week 3, and we'll hopefully try to run through this a little bit quicker. But we got I think we got 3 pretty good matchups this week, so we're going to blow through the 3 blowouts. Right now, Fairbanks Flamingos is projected to beat me pretty good. So I'm going to go with them, and I think that's the only thing we got to say about that. His team's good. My team is not. And
he's definitely trending in the right direction. Put up over 160 points last week. He's put up several strong weeks. I think he's going to continue to roll this week.
Mm-hmm. Jets are on the clock against Everything Must Go. Yeah, it's just not going to be a good year for Nick, and it's not going to be a good year for me. So we're going to always preview those games very quickly and move right on by. I got Jetzer on the clock in that one. He'll be 3-1 and potentially on top of his division, depending on how many points he scores.
And again, like I said, I thought Jetzer on the clock might take a step back, but obviously I have him this week going up against Nick's team, and Everything Must Go. I think he's going to get the win.
Then the Dominators take on the NJ Giants. Now the Dominators were the team that I picked to make a comeback this year. He's only projected to lose by 60 points this week. And MVS has him 0.9, going into the second quarter here. But you know what? I'm going to hold strong. I'm going to pick the Dominators this week. I think he gets off the schneid. I think NJ Giants falls to 2-2.
Look at you. You're staying strong with this Dominators pick. I think NJ Giants takes the victory here. His team's been very impressive. Odell Beckham, obviously. You kind of expect those weeks from him, that just he's going to get you those boom weeks more often than not. But yeah, some of his guys, I think.
And I mean, Emmanuel Sanders is playing well. Last week he had Phil Lindsay, who played well, Mark Ingram, who played well, Sterling Shepard, who played well with a quarterback who could throw the ball. Larry Fitzgerald has been kind of reborn under this Kyler Murray new spread it out offense. He's got a solid team. And that's kind of what we talked about earlier with the Jarrett trade, where they swap first-round picks. There's a chance that NJ Giants finishes higher than West Coasters this year, and that just only makes that trade much better.
Yeah.
That much better for NJ Giants.
And you talk about depth in the positions and that sort of thing. He's got Tyreek Hill, who's going to come back from his injury. I don't know when he's projected to be back, but I'm assuming probably week 6, week 7. So right in that time for fantasy football as the season heats up, I think he's going to be able to insert him right into that lineup. And so I like a lot of the moves that he's made, and he's looked impressive this year. And I think he continues to roll against Dominators this week.
Mm-hmm. And then we'll kind of get into some games that we'll preview a little bit more heavily right now. Live. Don't forget the money is up 13.7 to 1.76 as Carson Wentz and Alshon Jeffrey are. Oh, and just as I was saying that, Carson Wentz threw the ball to Alshon Jeffrey in the end zone, but he didn't come down with it.
Couldn't come down with the catch.
I was about to have a live score update for you, but I did not. But Mike, I got to specify here, Hackenberger and Fries has Wentz and Jeffrey going tonight, and Malfi has Devontae Adams going tonight. Malfi is projected to win by 4 points or so. And if this game continues to trend in the direction it is, then it seems like Malf's going to win by a couple more than 4 points.
Yeah, and I think this is. You were just you spent the last little bit railing against his team, but I keep going back, and maybe I'm wrong. And on paper, he kind of just keeps looking good. I think if you put Pat Mahomes out there week after week, he's going to produce and get you 25 to 30 points every week. I think You talked about Chris Godwin being hurt. You talked about Mike Williams being hurt. If they both play this week, I think they're both in. Well, Chris Godwin's got a difficult matchup, but Mike Williams is going up against the Dolphins this week. I think he should feast on that secondary that's just hasn't been able to stop anyone. Depending on what happens with Sony Michel and that sort of thing, I think Devontae Freeman's going to get back. I like. Don't forget the money here.
Oh,
score update.
Score update live. Brought to you by Tonight We Dyn Nasty podcast. We're so quick, the computer hasn't even gotten to it yet. Alshon Jeffrey, there's a flag on the field, but Alshon Jeffrey tentatively has caught a touchdown from Carson Wentz, and we might be able to give you a live score update.
I don't know if it's that we're so fast or that your TV is so slow, because I'm wondering if this flag is going to be offensive pass interference, and your TV just didn't catch up with it before.
Why is my TV slow?
Because we're not watching it on live. We're watching it on Amazon Prime, correct? And it might have a lag.
Why was that the TV's fault? It is offensive pass interference.
You have a lag.
We digress.
We know this about your TV.
But
you have a lag time.
But they called it on Zach Ertz.
Zach Ertz.
Who wasn't even near the football. And
you
wasn't even on
that.
the same side of the field. I don't understand.
You gotta hate that if you're Hackenberger and Fries.
That?
So you had a potential, like, what would that have been? Like, probably at least 12 points. Yeah. So probably around like 13, 14 points. And Zach Ertz gets the penalty there.
Oh, but they can challenge it. I wonder if they're going to challenge it. Anyway, we're going to get back to the podcast, and we're going to stop narrating this football game that when you hear this has already happened. So I'm actually just looking over at the matchups. I said I was going to pick Mouth. I'm actually going to switch my pick and stick to my bold prediction today, and I'm going to pick Hackenberger and Fries, because as I looked up and down the matchups that Mouth has, I mean, Mahomes is going against Detroit. It didn't matter if he was going against the Ravens of 2000. There's no way he's scoring less than 30 points. But Dalvin Cook is going against Chicago, in Chicago, against the best run defense in the league. Sony Michel is going against Buffalo, in Buffalo. Devontae Freeman is going against Tennessee. Calvin Ridley is going against Tennessee. Chris Godwin's going against the Rams. Mike Williams going against Miami. That's his only plus matchup that I see. On the other side, Marlon Mack is going against Oakland. Marlon Mack had like a coming out party, like 3 touchdowns last year against Oakland. Derrick Henry's playing Atlanta. Chris Carson's playing Arizona. Todd Gurley's playing Tampa Bay. Mike Williams and Allen Robinson have tough matchups. But I think that the plus matchups lay on the side of Hackenberger and Fries. And that's where my pick's going.
I just don't see it. I don't like Chris Carson. I don't like him in his matchup this week. O.J. Howard's been kind of a disappointment. He's going up against the L.A. Rams defense. I'm going to stick with don't forget the money in that one.
All right. Then we move on over to a game that we sadly cannot give you a live update on, where West Coasters is taking on Backyard Boys. And this is not as close as you would imagine with a 3-0 team and a 2-1 team. West Coast is projected to win by about 20 right now, about 18 points. If I'm reading that right, yeah. So I mean, Backyard Boys rolling out his big gun and Deshaun Watson. He's got Ezekiel Elliott hoping to get one more big week out of Austin Eckler. T.Y. Hilton is going against Oakland. DJ Chark is off his practice squad. And he's into the
starting lineup. Wow,
yeah.
That's a big move. But you see Rex Burkhead is in there, and obviously we know who's out of the lineup when Rex Burkhead is in the lineup, and that's Saquon Barkley. And once you have that 2 or 3-headed monster that he's had this year with Eckler, Zeke, and Saquon Barkley, it just doesn't make his team as intimidating.
Yeah, well, and I think it's simple for me right here. I'm gonna pick Jarrett. One, because Seattle can't guard a receiver, and Kyler Murray has 4 of them to throw to pretty much on every play. I love the way Alvin Kamara is looking lately. I know he's going up against a tough matchup against Dallas, but I think that Alvin Kamara is kind of matchup proof. Julio Jones has been incredible this year, and I think he continues. And Brandon Cooks against Tampa Bay, a very plus matchup. Kenny G against Kansas City, another plus matchup. I mean, I think it's
You wonder about the Delaney Walker, if he got a lot of late points last week in that Thursday night matchup. He didn't really look good throughout the game, but then ended with a better point total just because Mariota was just kind of finding him on the last couple drives. Mm-hmm. James Conner has been a player that has not had the type of year that West Coasters would like. But with all that said, John Ross has been kind of an up and down receiver. Obviously had those boom weeks at first and then kind of came back down to earth. But I think with that, I'm still selecting West Coasters just because of the matchups this week and Saquon Barkley being out of the lineup for Backyard Boys.
Mm-hmm. And then we go to you, Brent. I feel like we always end on you. We gotta mix it up moving forward. But you take on Ryan this week. Ryan's a little down in his projection, 123 this week. You've got 154. If you guys played last week, you would have lost. I just wanted to remind you about that.
I would have. Ryan put up some real good points because you know firsthand because he put them up on you.
Yes. And if you don't remember, at the end of the podcast last week, I told Ryan that I wanted good luck to him because we all know where my team's going this year and just how it's working out. Hold on. So, we do have a live score update. I guess it was overturned, and Hackenberger and Fries now has a touchdown. Carson Wentz to Alshon Jeffrey, making the score 15.62 to 13.7 as he takes the lead over Don't Forget the Money.
Glad we could bring you that live update that you all will listen to in probably a couple of days.
That was so exciting for me to do.
And speaking of live updates, we could talk about a live update score in this game too that we're previewing. So Poncho Power, Ryan, has Aaron Jones out there right now, and obviously Aaron Jones, if you all have watched the game, he had a touchdown early in the first quarter. So
yes,
so
but
Ryan's
he has
up.
only 10 yards, so he only has 7 points right
so
now.
Ryan is up early. It just went down, so he is now
he is
live
now
update. He had 7 points. Now he has 6.8. So Ryan is currently leading me. But I mean, I kind of look up and down the matchups and that sort of thing. I hate to keep doing it, but I'm not trying to pat myself on the shoulder or my back. But I
feel like you should be banned from talking about your team. I will preview your team from here on out.
I would love to preview my entire team. Dak Prescott.
We're not going to do that. We are not going to do that. I don't even know what to say. I don't even want to say anything about your team because you always just gloat about it. I
think that I'm going to go to 4-0 with this team. But you know what? If Ryan has the week that he did last week, he's going to beat me.
Uh-oh. Potential live update here. Devontae Adams with a big catch down the sideline, but there is a flag on the field. Brent, keep an eye on that as I preview your team.
Devontae Adams is back. I think that's what we can say. Devontae Adams is back officially. He's having his breakout game. We all know that he's a top 3, top 4 wide receiver.
Looks like it'll be offsides on the Eagles. This play will stand. Hackenberger and Fries is back down. Well, this quarterback is giving him he's giving him 15 yards.
So you know they're playing the Eagles defense, who notoriously does not have really good. It's not only all sides; it's a face mask as well. But notoriously has bad cornerbacks for the past probably 7-8 years.
Yeah, and
since that whole debacle with
15 yards
on. I forgot the guy's name, but whenever that was with the Vince Young team, and they. Anyways.
Asamoah. I don't remember his first name. I think it started with an A.
I thought it was an N.
Maybe.
This is really good content, guys.
Really. All right.
Let's go ahead and pick I've already picked.
You've already picked your team?
I think my team is going to win. Who do you pick in this matchup, versus Ryan?
I like always picking against you, but I feel like I can't necessarily do it this week. Ryan had a big week last week, but I just with just seeing the scores so far this game, with Aguilar not being able to participate thus far into the second quarter, with Alshon Jeffrey being back on the field, I just I'm going to go with you. I think you'll be 4-0. But it really pained me to say that.
I really appreciate that, Gerard. Thank you so much.
Me to say that. All right, guys. That's enough of this kind of half-distracted live update podcast.
If you've made it this far,
yes,
we appreciate
really
the patience. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, we will talk to you guys next week. Good luck, everybody, and especially you, Tyler.
Take care, guys.
Thank you for listening to Tonight We Dyn Nasty. If you enjoyed our content, be sure to like and share with your friends. If you have any suggestions for us to talk about in our future fantasy endeavors, please leave a comment below and we'll be sure to talk about it.